decided to enter on a whim, basically. And
I guess this is our main
This
protagonist.
is Marquise Henderson, a 16-year-old boy who has just performed the greatest upset in trading card game history because he just won a 1,400-man Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship out of nowhere. Even more surprising was the fact that this was the first large Yu-Gi-Oh! Event he had ever attended. A random kid who had never even won a local tournament would somehow embrace the heart of the cards to breeze through the top tables.
Statistically, to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Fans in the chat, okay, I don't know if there are any of you in here. Statistically, what are the chances of something like this happening? Like someone young, this guy is 16 years old, coming into a tournament with like what? Over 1,000 people? What did he say? 1,400, 1,200, 1,300, 1,400 people and smoking them? I don't think that's, and this guy says it's clearly the greatest upset in Yu-Gi-Oh! Or card playing history. So this is including Magic the Gathering. This is including Pokemon. Maybe it's like a chess grandmaster losing to a casual's random bullshit. Maybe it's more like a casual beating 1,300 grandmasters in one tournament. He's on prestige. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Okay, let's find out. I'm intrigued. Good hook.
Humiliating pro players along the way, some of whom were so salty that they refused to shake the boy's hand after
His opponent from the round before refused to shake his hand. LMFAO. Oh, boys. He is 100%. Do you guys think he's cheesing, right? Do you think it's like a cheese strat? But you would think that if you're doing a cheese strat, you'd think there'd be counters to it. Is this like the equivalent of like someone going into a Super Smash Brothers tournament and just standing on the edge and playing Samus and just like spamming long range abilities? There's no way, right? Pros have been dealing with that for years. They know how to get around it. Might actually be a Yu-Gi-Oh! Protagonist IRL. Dude, this is so anime.
after the match was over. You see, while his opponents used decks that cost thousands of dollars, Marquise instead
Yeah, they're
scrounged
expensive.
together a deck using only cards that he could afford. But he would still somehow assemble a strategy that would
I love that.
completely counter the best decks in the metagame. Yet in the eyes of the elitist Yu-Gi-Oh! Community, not only was he a nobody, but he was piloting a mediocre, frustrating deck that they thought was terrible.
I'm rooting for this guy, bro. This is an actual underdog story. I hope he does. He absolutely cooks these guys. I love this. This is like actual Yu-Gi-Oh! Shit, like my grandpa's deck. Isn't that how Yu-Gi-Oh! Started? I watched Yu-Gi-Oh! Right? I watched Yu-Gi-Oh! As a kid, but I never kept up with it after that. But I do remember he got like his grandpa's deck or his dad's deck or something, right? And it was like buns. But he believed in the heart of the cards and he like stomped everyone. Maybe that's why this is such a good story, because it's so in line with the actual story of the anime as well.
So just how did he manage to conquer all odds and win a Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship? Well, allow me to explain. Our story starts in the year 2012, where Marquise is a freshman in high school, playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Casually with his friends during lunch. Though highly popular, Yu-Gi-Oh! is one of the most expensive trading card games. Rare cards were
$1,300 for a Blue Eyes White Dragon? I actually thought it would be more expensive, but I guess maybe the Blue Eyes White Dragon, maybe the White Dragon is like power scaled. Maybe it's been power scaled out to oblivion now. I thought it was actually going to be more expensive. Is the Blue Eyes White Dragon like the shiny Charizard of the Yu-Gi-Oh! World, I wonder?
popular, Yu-Gi-Oh! is one of the most expensive trading card games. Rare cards were frequently short printed, creating artificial scarcity, with the staple cards needed for each deck costing hundreds of dollars on the secondary market. Needless to say, it was difficult for anyone to acquire these powerful cards, never mind a boy in high school who had bigger priorities to save for, like hot lunch and Jordans. Now, Yu-Gi-Oh! was also one of the most complex games, often with rules that weren't written anywhere in the official rulebook. Because of these reasons, despite the game being marketed towards children, the average tournament would still comprise mainly of adults in their 20s and 30s. So being only 16 years old certainly made things a lot harder. Now, Marquise would learn from his friends that
So this kid's already coming in at a massive disadvantage. He's 16. He can't afford it because he doesn't have adult money. And it sounds like you need some level of adult money to blast on these cards. And I apologize. I know I'm just repeating stuff that he said, but I'm also trying to absorb this as well. I've always had this problem with card games because I casually played Magic the Gathering. There were some cards and some decks that I wanted to build, but because people knew that these decks were like really popular, they just artificially jacked up the prices of certain cards that were like core to these decks. Even as a kid, I remember thinking this is so wrong, and it made me so upset. I absolutely hated that.
There was a local card store in their area that hosted Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments every Saturday, with a flood of eager duelists occupying every square foot of the store. Though he consistently attended these tournaments for months, he would never win a single one.
I wasn't even really playing, but for like a year and a half, I just kind of started. But yeah, I'd never won locals before. I've been playing just with my friends and stuff like that.
Being a big city, the players in his local scene
like
in
the ultimate
Atlanta were
underdog
much
story.
more skilled and had the budget to play the most powerful decks. Yet with each and every tournament, Marquise would slowly improve. After school, he would go online to research the metagame on forums and watch videos to learn the combos. Outside of drumline and basketball, Yu-Gi-Oh had quickly become his favorite hobby. While his skills were no doubt improving, being a high school student, he still didn't have access to the game's strongest cards. Popular decks at the time included the Dino Rabbit strategy, which leveraged the cuddly Rescue Rabbit to summon out 2 normal dinosaurs that could be combined into the Evolzerlagia and Doka to negate card and monster effects.
What? What did he just say? I didn't understand a word of that. You summon the rabbits to summon the dragons, and then the dragons summon the bigger rabbit and the bigger dragons, the evolved versions of them. Okay, I actually don't understand the rules. Interesting. If you're watching this video, thank you so much for watching the video. Please, I would love to understand this a little bit more. Obviously, I'm coming in as a complete beginner, so please explain, if there's something I'm missing or if I get something incorrect. We're just messing around and reacting. Please. Let me know in the comments, because I do want to understand this. This is so fascinating. I love this kind of culture stuff.
It would go toe-to-toe with the wind-ups, a combo deck that could set up an army of toys and rip away the opponent's hand on the first turn with a loop that involved recycling the wind-up hunter over.
What does this do? Wait, let's see if we can understand this. You contribute 1 face-up wind-up monster, except wind-up hunter. Send 1 random card from your opponent's hand to the graveyard. This effect can be used once while this card is face-up on the field. Does tribute means like sacrifice, essentially? You contribute and then send 1 random card to your opponent's hand to the graveyard. So I guess it's just like a loop. It's just a first-hand loop thing where it opens up, the game opens up, and then you can loop through it and send all the cards in their hand to the graveyard, which is diabolical. That's not even fun to play against. What do? Imagine you go to a tournament for the first time and a guy's like, yeah, you can't play. And he's like, why? And he's like, wind up hunter. I'm like, well, I came to play. He's like, well, you can't play today. And then everyone's just playing this. Like, how do you stop this realistically? I'm sure there's counter strategies to it.
And over again. But they made these decks really hard to put together. Their signature cards were printed in the highest rarity, secret rare, which meant you would be lucky to even pull 1 out of a box of 36 booster packs. To give you an example, Rescue Rabbit and Evolzer Doka were both $80 each, and cards like Wind Up Zenmains were $150.
Ooh,
and most of the
you know what? As an adult, as a man in my 30s, it's not too much to build a single deck, but like, bro, if you're like in your 20s or you're like a kid trying to build a deck and like all you want to do is just compete and like at least have a chance, you can't do this. You can't afford this. And in these decks, how many copies do you get? You probably have to get multiple copies. So an $80 card, this is USD, by the way, an $80 card, if you need like 3-4 copies of it, you're cooked, bro. You can't even, you're dead in the water.
Time you could play up to 3 copies of a given card. So if you multiply that, it was pretty ridiculous even by modern day standards. But it gets worse because there were 2 cards that were so powerful, every single deck would have to play them. Tour Guide from the Underworld was a generic monster that summoned Sangan from the deck, who could then search for all of the other deck's signature monsters when he was sent to the graveyard. But it also spawned 2 bodies for an instant XC summon, like Levier the Sea Dragon to revive Rescue Rabbit, or Wind Up Zen Mighty to summon out any windup. And 3 copies of Tour Guide cost $450 because of its secret rarity, and of course, the waifu tax.
Okay, well, it being more expensive because there's a waifu on it is, as we know, as my community knows, that's understandable. You guys spent thousands of dollars on waifu. All of these people here. See these guys down here? Degenerates, every single one of them. Now, I understand why some cards are going to be more expensive than others, but what I don't understand is this secret rarity thing. I don't understand why that is a part of the game, because to me that just sounds like a shiny version of it, like a back in the day, like you get like a chrome Charizard or whatever it's called, a holographic Charizard. It's still the same card. So is a secret rarity card like an actual different card? I don't actually understand that. Maybe he'll explain it.
Then there was Max C, a shiny bug that let the user draw a card for every summon the opponent conducted on a given turn. A mandatory counter to heavy combo decks like the windups, and one of the only ways to circumvent the turn 1 hand loop when going second.
And here comes the infamous loop, folks.
It's ironically still one of the most powerful cards in modern day, which justifies its $100 price tag at the
Well, he's asking him to surrender too. He's like, "Can I surrender?" I would be if that's the first time I'm getting that combo in my hand, and this guy's just like, "Oh, he wins, I'm gonna surrender." He's like, "Can I surrender?" I'd be like, "No, brother. No. Oh no. I'm doing it."
time. In total, this meant that you would have to spend well over $1,000 to build a solid Yu-Gi-Oh deck. Without these staple cards, you were basically put at a significant disadvantage, a barrier that many players would struggle with at the time, and honestly that kind of continues to this day. Marquise would obviously feel a little discouraged, knowing that this was an issue that he and his friends had faced. But one day in their group chat, one of Marquise's friends excitedly shared an idea. A deck that had somehow won the national championship the year prior out of nowhere. It was a TG stun deck.
My friend showed me, he's like, "Oh, like this deck is cheap, you can play this deck." I was like, "Okay, I'll give it a shot."
A strategy that leveraged using trap cards to stun the opponent out from playing, like Skill Drain, which as an
activate by paying 1,000 LP. 1,000 life points? Don't you have like 2,000 or 3,000 life points or something? Negate the effects of all face-up monsters while they are face-up on the field, but their effects can still be activated. Whoa, that is actually that's 8,000 points. Okay.
Name would imply, negated all monster effects on the field.
Skill Drain stops everything. And in my head, I was like, I didn't know too much. I was like reading all the cards. I'm like, is this not the best card in the game?
Now, the whole concept of the TG deck was to stun out the opponent using the trap cards, while the Tech Genis monsters would replace themselves when they were destroyed in combat, creating a cycle of near infinite resources while whittling.
Bro, so I'm kind of piecing it together here. Is Yu-Gi-Oh like Factorio? Is Yu-Gi-Oh like Factorio but for card players or something? You know, the way it seems like to me, it's like it's like you're trying to set up like these perfect environments and these perfect machines, right? Where you put your enemy on the conveyor belt and you just take him for a spin with all your cards. It's kind of awesome.
Pulling down the opponents using the traps. And since these effects activated in the graveyard, they were unaffected by Skill Drain, which only negated monster effects on the field.
This deck is like great. Like this is the one I just win the most with. I just played so much with it. Played it for like 5 or 6 months, just that one deck.
Marquise quickly jumped onto the idea. The cards were relatively cheap for the most part and easily accessible. The only problem with this deck was that its competitiveness was rather short-lived. By this time, it had since been outclassed by newer cards and excessive power creep that was difficult for trap-based decks to keep up with, especially when going second. So the deck had been dropped by the rest of the player base. But Marquise would continue playing TGs. It became his signature deck, and he strove to make it even better, making tweaks to it day by day. This would continue for the next few.
See, okay, this is what I love about creativity, and we don't talk about creativity too much on the channel, but I think this is so important about creativity. Creativity is always better with constraints, right? Humanity will always take a leap when constrained. Does that make sense? If this guy's put in a pressure cooker and only has this type of deck to work with, someone is going to come up with something cool that you did not think about that absolutely dominates all these other decks. Now, it's not only going to always happen, but you know, I think that's just such an interesting metaphor and allegory for human creativity.
Months, and as time passed, Marquise would eventually participate in regional tournaments. These were events on a larger scale that would attract stronger opponents, often a few hundred, who would travel from other cities in hopes of placing in the top percentile to receive an invite to the national championship held at the end of the year. His best finish at these regionals would be a 7-3 final record, a career highlight. An impressive feat on paper, but not exactly notable in the competitive Yu-Gi-Oh scene, for you would typically need a 9-1 record to place in the top.
Sorry, I know, listen, I say this every video, I apologize for pausing a lot, but I'm so curious about this and I don't want to talk over the video. Is there a Michael Jordan of Yu-Gi-Oh? Is there someone that is the greatest to ever do it? What kind of decks did they use? Did they evolve? Have their decks evolved over time? I want to watch. Let me know if there's a video about someone like this. I want to watch like the evolution of this person. It's not you, so stop lying, chat.
8 and receive prizing. So naturally, no one in the competitive scene would know the name Marquise Henderson, never mind even in his own local area. But just a few months later, this would change completely. it was soon announced that Atlanta would be the host city for the next Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship Series, the most competitive tournament at the highest peak of the game that would draw over 1,000 duelists, including notable pro players who dominated the tournament circuit. Now, Marquise was rather unfamiliar with championship-level tournaments. His familiarity with competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Was limited mostly to his area, with regional tournaments being the extent of what he had experienced. So when his friends told him about YCS Atlanta, he figured it'd be the size of regionals with 100 players or two at most. But he had no idea that this would be something far greater than he would have ever imagined.
My friend just told me about this event. Like, I didn't know what it was going to be. I thought it was like,
dude, going into a tournament, that's so many people, by the way. Going into a tournament with 1,000 people is so intimidating. And Yu-Gi-Oh! And card games are 1v1 games. How crazy is that to think about as well? I think I've been to large sports tournaments when I was a kid. I think I went to a large basketball tournament with like a few hundred people, maybe 200 people max. And that was a little easier to deal with because you're with your team. You've got people around you that you can rely on and lean on. And then you're like, well, I don't have to beat all these people. You know, my group that we've trained with, we have to beat all these people. And it's a little easier to mentally deal with because people don't talk about the mental stress of being in a tournament. It's very different. He is surrounded by 999 people that all want to kill him. Not actually kill him, but defeat him, you know? And it's all on you. It's a lot of pressure, especially for your first time. Going to a 1,000-player tournament must be nuts.
50, 100 people. My dad, the first day I went to the event, YCS, he's like chilling in the freaking convention center. He's like, oh yeah, we can go to the convention center. I'll go with you.
On the Friday of the tournament, his dad would drive him to the venue to pick up their entry badges. And only upon entering would he be shocked by the sheer scale of the event. Instead of a few hundred players, there was well over 1,000.
There was like a million people running around. I'm like, I don't even want to enter. He's like, you have to enter. We're already here. I'm like, okay, I'll enter.
A robust hall filled with the most competitive, daring challengers, many of whom had ventured from the opposite side of the country to test their skills. You see, the winners of this tournament in particular would receive the coveted Blood Mephist prize card that to this day sells for thousands of dollars. Unlike
$20,000. What does it do? Blood Mephist. Once per turn during your opponent's standby phase, you can inflict 300 damage to your opponent for each card your opponent controls. Each time your opponent sets a spell or trap, 100 damage to your opponent. Oh my God, you're just cooking him. That actually sounds really OP, dude. What do you do with that? That's actually crazy expensive.
The other prize cards, and for reasons unknown, the Blood Mephist has never been reprinted. Rumors say it's due to legal reasons with the card's original artist, meaning that the only copies of the card in existence to this very day were the limited copies given out to the winners of these tournaments.
So, but do these people get to play with these cards? Because to me, that doesn't seem fair that they can use it. Yeah, but I don't see why if it's a $20,000 card, there's no way you're cracking that thing out ever, right? What if though? What if it was like on the line and you knew you needed this card and it was tournament legal? Let's say the tournament was like a $50,000 tournament. Would you use the card? Would you break it out of the case? Would you keep it in a break glass in case of emergency? I mean, I absolutely would. It's probably not legal. Yeah, there's no way. There's no way it's legal. There's no way.
Making it now one of the rarest cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! History. So naturally, there was a big prize at stake. But before the tournament had even begun, these players had already activated their strongest card, the credit card. The vendors were completely overwhelmed, with players swiping left and right, forced to pay premiums on last-minute cards that they needed for competition the very
I didn't even think about that, bro. If you were a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card vendor or any card vendor at a card tournament, how much money could some of these guys make? Especially last minute. You find out your opponent's using a specific deck and you need a specific card and you think you're gonna win. You think you're potentially gonna win this tournament to win a $20,000 card. You go over to the table and he's like, I need this card, I need it. And as the seller, you're gonna be like, for a $500 card, you're gonna be like, $16,000. This is really fucked up. This is a fucked up world. This is brutal.
Very next day. Most of them were using Dino Rabbit or Windups, with a few other decks in between that were equally as pricey. Luckily for Marquise, the expensive cards in his TG deck, like Pot of Duality and Solemn Warning, had already been reprinted the year prior, costing only a few dollars instead of hundreds. But nevertheless, he still wanted to make important additions to his deck where possible. With only $40 left to his name, Max C was out of the equation. certainly putting him at a disadvantage, especially when going second, and he would perhaps be the only player in the entire hall that was not playing the card. But at the same time, he had a feeling inside that for his trap-heavy deck, he wouldn't need it. And you know, saving $300 didn't seem like a bad idea either. Instead, Marquise walked up to the vendors and decided to finally splurge on a lone copy of Bryonak, Dragon of the Ice Barrier.
Oh, that's
a card
a cool
that
ass
wasn't
card.
necessary for the deck at all, but could be made in niche scenarios with a TG Striker, and was another step to optimizing his deck into the
maybe he's going to explain it immediately, but hang on, let me read it myself. What does it do? Bryonak, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. Metal AF, by the way. You can discard any number of cards to the graveyard, then target the same number of cards your opponent controls. Return those cards to the hand. You can only use this effect once per turn. You're just like your rival doesn't get to play, I guess. I'm not sure. I don't know what all this other stuff means. This is the mana cost to go in, I believe. I don't know if it's called mana in this. And that's all I know. This is obviously attack and defense. But yeah, that's all I know.
In niche scenarios with a TG Striker, and was another step to optimizing his deck into the strongest it could possibly be for the tournament the next day.
I spent my last $40 on the Bryonak that I needed for my deck. I summoned it once, but it won me the game, so it was freaking worth it.
Lastly, in place of the Maxi, he opted instead to run 2 copies of the Beast King Barbaros, a card that had never seen play before.
Yo.
Though printed as a level 8 with an attack value of 3000, Beast King had an effect that would allow its user to drop its attack to 1900 and normal summon it without tributing any monsters. But while Skill Drain was on the field, it would negate this drawback completely and restore its attack back to 3000, threatening even the Blue Eyes White Dragon. His deck would maximize the full capacity of Skill Drain, a card whose potential he recognized early on.
So you're telling me this sounds awesome and there's a lot of synergy with this deck. You're telling me no one figured out how to beat this out of what, 1,300 people? I guess in a tournament you don't play 1,300 people though. I don't know how many people he ends up facing, but you're telling me not a single person figured it out? This is hilarious.
Thunder King Ryle would stun the opponent from searching their deck for cards, while Horn of the Phantom Beast boosted his beast monsters and let him draw a card each time the monster trampled over an opposing one by battle. And
so
last but not least, Reborn Tengu was a pesky beast warrior who could be powered up by the horn and also replace itself when it was removed from the field.
Okay, so I said it's like Factorio, but maybe I'm a little wrong. It's I don't know, have another metaphor for it, but it's maybe like you've got all these pieces. You guys start with like a bunch of pieces, and then your enemy puts out like a little custom piece. He's like, "Here, I built this. What are you gonna do about it?" And you're like, "Oh, I've got this card and this card and this card. I've got this little component. I'm gonna throw this out." And you guys start building these giant machines against each other. I think I figured it out.
His deck would cost just over $100, and most of the players in the hall would scoff at the idea of this deck being remotely competitive, until day 1 of the tournament kicked off, which would start off extremely well for Marquise Henderson,
Most people
who
counter
jump-started
popular
his
strategies.
event with
Makes
6
sense.
wins and 0 losses, with his friends shocked beyond belief. Marquise was completely locked in.
I went like 6-0, and that's when I was like, what the heck? So
he would only drop his first match in round 7 to an empty jar deck, another rogue strategy that relied on decking out the opponent by looping the morphing jar over and over again.
And then I lost round 7 to a very like insane opponent. I'm like sitting here like reading like, is this works? Like, yeah, this works. So this freaking empty jar guy, I even flipped Skill Drain on him, and he's literally still like killing me through Skill Drain, like flip up and then I'll chain book him.
He found his rival, bro. He found his jank rival, dude. This is like at the beginning of Pokemon. When you meet your rival, you duel once, he kicks your ass, and you're like, "Ow!" A few years pass, you see him again, he kicks your ass again. "Oh, Gary, you son of a bitch!" It's the same deck every time, just a little bit better. You see him 3 years later, you finally almost get beaten him. He beats your ass again though. He's like, "Ah!" Pulls out that card. This is I sense a rivalry in the mix here.
Moon, okay, now it's face down, I'll dump your hand again. I was like, what? What are you talking about?
But outside of this, all of his other opponents had utilized powerful meta decks, and some of these opponents became perturbed, for Marquise would have to read a lot of their cards, which agitated them even further because this dude was going around playing a frustrating rogue deck, but also reading the popular cards that they would have expected him to know with a 6-0 record at a major tournament like this. And both his opponents and the judges were especially shocked to find that Marquise wasn't familiar with the combos and rulings that they thought were basic.
When I say I wasn't really like that into the game, like I hadn't played for that long, like the judge had to explain me for like a minute or two about like the rulings of wind up shark and wind up magician. So I'm like, how does that work? And I'm like, I don't know, whatever. I had to read a lot of the cards. Yeah, like
No
it's
way.
just a lot. Like I didn't know like dueling was that much.
It also pissed him off even further that he was flipping cards like Skill Drain that nullified their expensive cards.
Yeah.
People didn't like the deck because obviously you just like stun your opponent, stuff like that. Yeah, it is what it is. Like obviously I drew the right traps very often, drew Skill Drain a lot.
These players were completely shocked, and word of mouth spread pretty quickly. Online chatter slowly begun with rumors of an
Okay, so what I'm thinking is this deck used to be very powerful, but it had a very short amount of time in the sun. And then it got quickly outscaled by other stuff, so this deck that he's using, the stun deck, got forgotten about. This is like... But it could have gone on like a legendary run if it was allowed to go any further. It could have been like, I don't know, for people who like Overwatch, it could have been like the GOATS comp, you know? It could have been an absolute demon, but it just got buried and forgotten about. And this guy just happened to he was just stumbling along in the desert. He happened to trip over it. He's like, what is this? And he just happened to find it. And then it just happened to like perfectly mesh with him. And then he's like added to it and changed it. And he's turned it into this like unkillable Demon King deck. That's kind of awesome. I'm not gonna lie, I can see why people love this story so much, because that in itself is just so anime. That's so cool. It sounds like an anime.
Unknown duelist who was playing in his first ever YCS with a budget version of an outdated deck idea that pissed off the pro players at the top tables. While many reveled in the
And I
chaos,
gotta say, if you are shook by this deck as a pro player, do you really deserve to win this tournament? If you're coming in here and your strategy doesn't include you getting stomped by a couple of bums with a weird strategy here and there, are you a GOAT? No, you didn't prepare for that. That's kind of on you, bro. You stay mad. You know, winners win. Winners win, bro. That's all I'm going to say about that.
and cheered Marquise on, others were less than optimistic. Some of the pro players at the event even refused to shake his hand after the match, as they were extremely salty about the prospect of losing to such a player, and a deck
whatever.
that locked them down from playing. Never mind one that was full of cheap, low rarity cards.
I don't know if he appreciated I just kept drawing Skill Drain. I kept drawing freaking Skill Drain, and he actually MST'd when I flipped another one in response. So I just have freaking 2 Skill Drains. He killed when I just have another.
It reminds me of that GIF. I've shown you that video before of when the cops are chasing the dude with the bucket on his hat, and then they catch him and they pull the bucket off his head, and there's another bucket on his under the bucket.
So he was mad about that.
Marquise would play against several opponents utilizing the Dino Rabbit deck, a matchup that he found to be favorable midway throughout the tournament. He would set as many trap cards as possible and then use Skill Drain to lock out their signature Evolzar monsters.
What I was most afraid of was the Dino Rabbit deck, because they can just use a free negate. I'm like, oh well, you can't even get around that. There's nothing you can do. I didn't even know what Dino Rabbit did at the time. I was scared of it. Some of the matches were just brain dead easy. It wasn't even me. It was just a good meta choice.
And at this point, you're probably wondering how he did so well. I mean, it's his first major tournament. He's picking up cards to read them. His opponents are frustrated. What was the secret sauce that Marquise had implemented? Well, for starters, none of his opponents were really prepared, and many of their decks would lack adequate trap removal or ways to counter Skill Drain. You see, a lot of these players weren't even playing Mystical Space Typhoon, which was
Oh, you weren't playing Mystical Space Typhoon? It's rookie mistake. What is this, amateur hour? There's 1,000 people there. Not a single person thought to bring Mystical Space Typhoon. Targets one spell trap on the field and destroys that target. Unbelievable. Tournament filled with amateurs, man. I'm just kidding, by the way. Obviously, if people reliably aren't going to play these cards and these weird decks, why bring it? It's just a waste, right? It's a waste of space.
Classic way to destroy a spell and trap card. In its place, they instead elected to play high-impact hand disruption cards that could be used on the first turn to try and stop the opponent from comboing, like Effect Veiler to negate the wind-up combo. And ironically, these cards happen to be absolutely useless against Marquise's TG stun deck, which neither summoned a lot of monsters nor utilized their effects.
No one really cares about the trap decks back then. At least in that specific event, a lot of people just didn't even play MST, and I don't think some of them cited it. It was kind of smooth sailing if you just get that up, and it was you can stun your opponent, because a lot of people didn't see it coming.
Since no one was prepared for it, this meant that Skill Drain was there to stay on Marquise's
No
field,
way.
allowing him to ultimately finish with an impressive 9.
I'm so curious. So after this tournament, do you think this guy changed the Yu-Gi-Oh competitive scene meta, where people were like, dude, we can't have kids like that just cruising through. We gotta actually we have to actually prepare for that. Do you think they started throwing in some MSTs as well? I bet they did, because this kid's just gonna keep winning. You have to change the strategy actually. Yeah, because he's just gonna do it again, or other people are gonna start copying that strategy because it's such an easy and cheap deck to replicate, right? They're probably so I think the entire competitive scene changes because of that, at least in a tiny bit, in a tiny way.
9-2 final record.
Called my dad, I was like, oh yeah, you're just going to play in the tournament, have fun, whatever. And I called him after like round 9. I was like, oh, I think I have to come back. I think I have to come back to this. And he's like, why? I'm like, well, there's like a day 2. And I guess like I made the day 2. He's like, okay, we'll come back.
Also, if you guys are enjoying this
rooting
video,
for this kid.
don't forget to subscribe to the channel and touch that like button. After the 11 Swiss rounds, the final standings were announced before the top 32 players would face off in a sudden death playoff bracket to ultimately decide the winner of the tournament. And in 12th place was none other than Marquise Henderson.
Damn.
His friends erupted in cheers. Marquise had done the impossible. He had made the top cut of a tournament with almost 1,400 players and defeated multiple pro players along the way with his own unique strategy. But his job wasn't done yet. He still had more Yu-Gi-Oh! To play. His top 32 and top 16 matches would be against Alistair Albanes and Michael Lux, 2 pro players with dozens of prior accolades.
Also, by the way, 2 of the coolest names I've ever heard in my life.
The former with a 2nd place championship finish, and the latter a 1st place champion. Both players were using Dino Rabbit, which skill drain and a plethora of traps would take care of.
Damn.
I was in the top cut, and they like rope off the freaking place for you for like the duelist to play. I'm like looking at the concession, so when I won, like, oh, can I go over there? And he's like, no, you can't go any. You got to freaking stay here and do. I'm like, oh, this is freaking serious. Like, what the heck? I can't believe they're like keeping tabs on you. I was like, okay.
On an empty stomach, top 8 would be an uphill battle, for his opponent, John Oxendine, would utilize a wind-up strategy that could spell doom for Marquise if he went 2nd. Like I mentioned earlier, the deck had a signature turn 1 combo that could discard nearly every single card in Marquise's hand.
On turn 1. So it seems like Yu-Gi-Oh! Could also be kind of like, in those old Japanese black and white films, they've got the standoff thing happening, the ones that were inspired by like the spaghetti westerns, and then it's over in one strike, right? It's like, they kind of like, and then they both stand there, and then one guy goes, and the blood. Kurosawa, thank you. Kurosawa films. Yes.
And before he even had a turn to play, especially because his deck lacked the one defensive card that could refill his hand to prevent this, Max C. But luckily for Marquise, he would win the die roll and go first, setting up skill drain, which was more than enough to stop the windups from, well, winding up.
I did like go 2nd against a lot of wind. They just didn't have hand. Again, I just lucky. I don't know what the statistics of that are.
Okay, so I understand why people would be a little bit upset though, because that is kind of BS, especially if you're right. First turn can be a crazy advantage, especially in a one-shot scenario. That's ridiculous, and it just goes down to a dice roll. So your entire tournament, because the decks, I bet, are obviously so optimized, because the game's been around for so long. The decks are so optimized, these one-hit kills off the bat are always on the table. So sometimes it literally just comes down to a dice roll at the start of the game. I would be so mad. Especially tournaments that come down to chance, dude. It sucks. It happens. Chance is always a part of these sports and competitive tournaments, but that sucks, man. I'd be pissed.
Early avoiding disaster, thanks to a little bit of luck with the dice roll, the semi-final match would once again test his fortune. It was another wind-up opponent, a pro player by the name of Anthony Pasquarello. Now, Anthony's deck actually played 2 copies of Mystical Space Typhoon.
Oh, he's got him. He's got
would open the dice roll once again with a set skill drain. Anthony would open with both copies of Mystical Space Typhoon. But the rest of his hand didn't contain any monsters, allowing Marquise to simply beat him down. Even more interesting was the fact that Anthony had anticipated the existence of rogue trap decks, and to account for this even further, he would also side deck copies of Royal Decree.
While this card is face up on the field, negate the effects of all trap cards on the field except this card. He was ready. Wait a minute. So this kid, not only did he just have a weird deck that not many people were prepared for, the people that were prepared for it, when he went up against them, it was just bad luck suddenly happened. This is weird. We're getting into some kooky mystic stuff here, guys. He's got a guard. This kid's got a guardian angel on his shoulder, man. This is weird. The bad luck happening to all your opponents. I don't know, man. I'm sensing a conspiracy. No, I'm just kidding.
A continuous trap card that negated the effects of all other trap cards.
Unbelievable.
And in the second game, he would open with a copy of Royal Decree and Mystical Space Typhoon, the perfect cards to counter Marquise's strategy. But just like in the the first game, the rest of his hand was rather weak, with the lone wind-up rabbit as his only line of offense, which wasn't the card he needed to initiate the wind-up hand loop combo. And not only this, but Marquise would top deck his own copy of Mystical Space Typhoon to destroy the Royal Decree, allowing him to set up his army of trap cards and ultimately win the match. Marquise's Guardian Angel was evidently working overtime. Ironically,
right?
Hanse
No kidding, that's what
Aguero,
I'm
the winner
saying.
of Nationals a year prior and the pioneer of the TG stun deck, yes, the very man who Marquise got his idea from in the first place, would also make the top cut with Dino Rabbit.
Oh, he's in
but he
here
would
too!
be knocked out early by another player, so the two wouldn't cross paths.
Imagine those two met up, dude. Two knowers looking at each other, being like, couple of shysters, these guys.
But he would give Marquise a few motivational words for what would be the most important match in his entire life, the finals. His opponent would be the last remaining Dino Rabbit player
That's
in
nice.
the tournament, and the stakes were higher than ever.
The guy in the finals, his name was Roman Rodriguez. I still freaking remember him. Great opponent. It was a great duel. He actually said in the middle, he's like, don't take my picture. And the staff was like, well, we need a picture. He's like, no, I don't do picture, I don't do picture. So like, you won't find a picture of him anywhere. So had he come in first, you actually wouldn't have a picture of the winner at all.
Miraculously,
That's awesome. I didn't know that's an option. Can you aura farm any harder than this guy? Are you allowed to? I guess you're allowed to do that. You have free will. Wait, I'm sad I can't see this guy. His mystique has just grown so much. I feel like, I don't know what happened to this guy, but I feel like he was really growing a solid brand around that. That's awesome.
Marquise would go first yet again and set up the deck's most optimal opening play. A Beast King Barbaros backed behind 4 powerful trap cards,
Damn.
with, you guessed it, one of them being Skill Drain. But the icing on top was a Starlight Road that would protect his field from being wiped away by Roman's Heavy Storm. In the second game, with his back against the wall staring down his worst nightmare in the form of 2 Ovosarlagias, he would somehow top deck a Pot of Duality, revealing the top 3 cards of his deck to
When someone says top deck, obviously it's at the top of the deck, but does that mean they need a specific, like they've got their cards in their hand, right? They're like, oh, I wish I had Pot of Greed. And so eventually on your turn, you get to pull a card out of your hand. You get to pull a card off the deck, and that, if that was Pot of Greed, and you're like, oh, that's the one I needed, and it goes from the deck onto the field, that's top decking. Top decking is like the perfect draw. Okay, exact. Okay, I got it. I'm understanding. Okay, great. I love this. This is my favorite thing about doing these videos and these reactions, is slowly learning about these little rabbit holes that I had no clue about. This fills me with so much joy. It makes me so happy.
add one to his hand.
I used 2 traps, bait 2 negates, but I'm still like dying. Did duality and I got dark hole. I freaking cleared it. So like, it was like the double Agia, like the thing I was most afraid of. I ended up like somehow getting out of that. I was like, it was so lucky.
With the last revealed
So
card
lucky.
miraculously being the dark hole that he needed to wipe away his opponent's entire board. This was a game-winning move that would raise a trophy and the Blood Mephist into the air by the newly crowned champion of YCS
Crazy.
Atlanta, Marquise Henderson.
I'm Marquise Henderson.
Speak a little louder, bro.
I'm Marquise Henderson. I just decided to enter on a whim, basically. I decided to enter with
Speak a little louder, bro. Okay, this kid is 16 years old. He literally just beat 13,000 people. He didn't just, he thought there was going to be 100 people here, and he wins a 1,000-person tournament on day 2. Respect to this kid, for real. Telling him to speak up is diabolical, though. I hate, when I was a kid, if I was talking to someone, an adult, and they told me to speak up, I would get so upset.
TG stun, and I ended up winning.
Like I didn't even like realize after I won. I was so locked in at the end of the day. I was like, at the end of like the finals, I was like, I don't know, like I didn't know what to do. I was like, we're still no more dueling. Like I actually was just in the thick of it. Now I called my dad. I was like, I ended up winning.
With word of his victory, the entire Yugi net erupted. While the reaction was generally positive, many people couldn't fathom that a nobody had won such a prestigious tournament, especially a first-timer, and of course with a strategy that no one felt was playable. Now, funny enough, there would be another TG stun deck in the top 32 alongside Marquise, propelling the deck to finally be respected once more.
That was
But
another
the
one.
pros were angry. They felt that Marquise's deck building was suboptimal. He had
Oh, whatever, bro. You're just mad you lost. Get over it. You got your little $1,000 fancy, high horse deck got beat by $100 little pub deck. You're a pub. You're a pub. Plain and simple. You know, couldn't beat a 16-year-old kid. You're going to cry about it? By the way, something's been bothering me in this entire video. Who doesn't shake a 16-year-old kid's hand? These are all adults. He said at the beginning of the video, most of these people are 20 to 30-year-old grown men. Who's not shaking a kid's hand after he stomps you? Fucking respect, kid. I don't care if look, if I'm playing a Smash tournament, some kid beats me by playing young Link and just throws bombs at me from the other side of the map and shoots arrows, you know, plays like an annoying strategy. Who cares? Shake the kid's hand. It's a competitive tournament. He beat you fair and square with a legal deck. Don't stop being a bum. These people are bums. Unbelievable. Well, some of them, I'm sure not all of them are, but like that's really been bothering me. You know, that's really been grinding my gears this entire video, man. Where's the sportsmanship?
Played a budget-friendly alternative to the optimal build, foregoing important metagame cards like Maxi that, in their opinion, was a non-negotiable.
And the kid got a little lucky
It was the only way
too.
of winning against windups when going second. Beyond that, they also said his ratios were incorrect, like playing one lone copy of Solemn Warning, one of the most powerful trap cards in the game that could negate any summon. Then they molded at the fact that Marquise had side decked 3 copies of Des Wombat, a card that was played for the sole purpose of countering burn decks.
All right, nobody probably knows what this card is.
What the hell is this, man? Read this, please.
This kid's a genius. This kid's a genius. If you don't know the perfectly legal cards that he's pulling out and you're blaming, oh, we use cards I didn't expect. You're a bum. All right. If the kid comes at you with some niche pick, you gotta respect the game. Shake his hand, move on, go home to your wife and kids. All right.
No effect damage. I really hate burn. I never sided him because I never played chamber, which I'm
This kid just hated burn decks, so he's like, I hate playing against burn decks, so I just added 3 cards in so I don't have to play to diffuse burn decks. It's simple. And people are molding.
so happy about it. You ain't play too much windup.
Except that burn decks were rogue in particular, and it was highly unlikely that anyone had entered a championship tournament with one. Meaning Marquise had effectively wasted 3 critical slots in his 15-card side deck to account for a non-competitive deck that he'd encountered once or twice at locals. But it gets even worse. One popular rumor would spread online saying that Marquise was autistic, which wasn't true at all.
So what? Even if he was, so what? People have been doing this for years, man. Why can't a kid just win? Why can't we just be happy? This kid was an amateur. He got a little bit lucky. He had a weird deck. He just seemingly slipped through the cracks because he was a little intelligent about it. And we're shitting on a kid. I can't imagine how I would feel if I win a tournament like that. I'm on an absolute high, and then people on the internet are calling me autistic. I'd be losing my mind. I'd be in every single comment, responding to every single one. Just because you're good at something also doesn't mean you are autistic. I don't know.
Okay.
It's actually funny. During the tournament, they did start a rumor that I was autistic, and they're like, "Oh, this autistic kid won the event." It's like great, blah blah. And it was freaking. I thought it was funny, but no, I'm not.
I feel like a huge amount of people in a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament would also be autistic. This isn't exactly an outlier when you go to competitive tournaments. I think pretty much everyone. I think everyone might be a little bit on the spectrum. At least I from what I've experienced when I've gone to tournaments. This guy is a little awkward, maybe, but he's a perfectly normal human being. He just got pretty lucky with a cool deck, man. Like, this is crazy. The backlash is ridiculous, man. You all lost to him. No one can say anything because no one beat him. Maybe that, except that one guy, the pot guy. His rival Gary. He's the only one that can say anything. And he's 16, exactly. He's a 16-year-old kid. Bubs. Oh yeah, you're all bubs.
Autistic anyway. But they started that rumor.
Their only way of rationalizing that Marquise had won was a possibility of him being a savant, someone who had become a Yu-Gi-Oh genius overnight.
Anything except thinking that you are stupid. I can't be stupid, so this kid must be a genius. God forbid I'm an idiot. Oh, he beat me? Oh, he must be a genius. Well, your IQ is 95 on a good day, so he doesn't need to be a genius to beat you. You know, he just maybe needs to be a little bit ahead of the curve, or right on the curve.
Some would accuse him of cheating, saying that the only plausible explanation was sleight of hand or rigging of the game, and not talent.
I get it though, because like, sorry, I'm pausing so much, but I've got this. I'm so into this story. I understand from an outsider's perspective, because obviously when you hear about this tournament, not everyone was there. When you hear about the tournament, you hear like this kid won with a weird deck. In your brain, you'd be like, you would instantly be like, well, maybe he cheated. Maybe there was something weird there. I get that. At the same time, I'm trying to find common ground on both sides, but instantly calling a kid autistic and a cheater is weird adult behavior, especially from a grown ass man, dude.
After all, he had completely shaken up the expectations of what should have won. In their eyes, only a pro player should have been able to win, and using a deck that cost thousands of dollars. A lot of players online would complain about Marquise getting extremely lucky, almost uncharacteristically. One commenter would say, "Just gonna throw this out there, but the 2 feature matches they put up, his opponents had pretty bad hands, and he had outs to everything. Dude has Yugi level luck." He would frequently win the dice roll and go first,
To be
which
fair,
was
he
a
actually
crucial
does.
way of winning with a trap deck that could set up an army of defensive options before the opponent got a chance to play. They explored every possible angle to discredit Marquise's victory, but at the same time, others would defend him. Excited that a rogue strategy had won the event, piloted by a new player who had put the rich and the mighty in their place, showing everyone that Yu-Gi-Oh! Wasn't just about activating the credit card.
I
Yeah.
think way more people were just like, hey, listen.
I think this is overall a good thing, man. You need people like this to shake up the industry and the community every once in a while. You need one person to come through and just blow everyone out of the water and show them that, hey, like the status quo is always we can always shake up the status quo by being creative and getting a little bit lucky. Like a meta shakeup in a place where you think that your credit card gets you most of the way, and someone showing you that it isn't necessarily true should be celebrated. I believe it should be celebrated. I'm sure it sounds like he was celebrated by a lot of people, but like overall, I don't know. People are so salty, man, especially in competitive spaces. They're games. Who cares?
Like, this is a cool deck. You know, I didn't expect to win. This is a nice thing that happened. So honestly, it was way more positive than negative. People came up afterwards like, oh, I really want to play this deck. I think this deck is cool.
Ironically, after his victory, many players even adapted and would begin playing the TG Stun deck.
Yeah.
If a 16-year-old kid who had never entered a championship
Yeah, maybe I
win
can
with
do
an
it. Maybe I can win.
incomplete build, then the deck had certainly outperformed in some capacity. This was short-lived, however, as the deck was almost immediately hit on the ban list, with both TG Striker and Reborn Tengu, 2 of the deck's main monsters, being restricted.
Why? That's bullshit. What the hell? Okay, so if there's like one-hit combos that are allowed in this game, why are we banning stuff that also does the same thing? What's more fun? Playing a game against this deck or like getting one shot by Sweaty Steve over there. 36-year-old man, father of 4, got a full-time job working in financials, spends $5,000 a month on Yu-Gi-Oh cards, beating up 16-year-olds in tournaments. What's more fun?
Though not necessarily due to the TG Stun deck, for both of these cards were also abused in other decks around the same time, catching it in the crossfire.
But yeah, that was my first big event. The stars aligned. That's all I'll say. The stars aligned. I tried to play well, but it was a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh going on.
Yeah, right. Even he knows.
But that was the only YCS I ever entered, and I ended up winning.
At the end of the
Crazy.
day, it seems that all the
That's
stars
crazy.
would align for Marquise to win the championship on that fateful weekend. A combination of fortune, his opponents being unprepared, and the power of skill drain were all factors that played into this.
Perfect
But
storm, baby.
regardless, his skill was what mattered the most. No matter how lucky you get, you still have to be extremely good at the game to win a championship of 1,400 players.
The kid's not a bum. The kid absolutely isn't a bum. There were a couple of instances in this story where he played well and like countered people when they needed to be countered. Like, he's not a bad player by any means. He's probably a really good player who is amateur, who got also really lucky, had a great deck. Simple. Why are we not shaking this kid's hand? I can't get over that.
But all of this would come together perfectly to allow him to achieve the greatest monumental feat in
It's an amazing
competitive
story.
Yu-Gi-Oh history. Nevertheless, this would seemingly be the most fortuitous weekend for Marquise Henderson, as he would never again perform at a major Yu-Gi-Oh tournament.
To this day, actually, that was the only YCS I ever entered. But that was the only YCS I ever entered, and I ended up winning.
Instead, retiring from play and starting his own trading card vending booth in Atlanta at the popular card show
Smart.
Charlie's Collectible Show.
Smart, going straight for the money. I was just saying, if I were to get into the Yu-Gi-Oh trading card world, I would be at the booths. I'd be selling the cards at the tournaments for incredulously, ridiculously high prices based on how stressed out the player looked. I'd be reading them like the Mentalist. This guy's sweating. He's looking a little purple, looking a little white. Eyes a little shaky. $3,000 card. What? I need it. He's like, what? That's $100 card. How bad do you need it? Oh, so bad. I'm going to win the tournament with it. $4,000.
Ended up just vending mostly just Yu-Gi-Oh, but it just became more and more. Well, I have a booth in Charlie's Collectible Show, both in the Atlanta and the Houston location.
Let's go.
I can't say enough about Charlie's Collectible Show. Like, they're insane. Like, the owner's done a lot for me. Maybe 60 or 70 like card vendors, anime, sports, like video games.
Cool.
With a booth called Trading Cards LLC. So if you're in the Atlanta or Houston area, definitely go check out the show.
Let's
Who
go.
knows, you might even see the legend in person. And what happened to the prized Blood Mephist, you might ask?
So because I was 16, I was kind of broke. When I
He sold it. He sold it. 100% he sold it. I did the exact same thing when I was 16 years old, and I still regret it to this day. When I was a kid, I had all the retro consoles. I had everything. And I could not pay for college, and I sold everything. I've told you guys this story before. I sold my Game Boy Color. I sold all the cool little games that came with it. I sold the GameCube and all the games that came with it, and all my other everything. I sold it all. My Magic cards gone. You know who picked it up? This rich dude pulled up in a Dodge. Well, I don't know what it was. It was like a Dodge Charger or a Porsche. It was like a nice car. Pulled up. He loaded it up. Handed me $500 and was like, yeah, thanks, kid. And I was like, what are you gonna do with it? And he was like, oh, probably just like resell all this stuff. Pulled it up, popped open the trunk. This guy had like 10 GameCubes in there. Tossed it in with all the other ones, tossed in my childhood, slammed the trunk and drove off. And I blew all that money. I didn't even use it to pay college. I blew it on something else. I don't know. And I regret it to this day. I still regret it. Don't do that. If you have all your stuff, try and hang on to it. I sold my guitar too, dude. Man. Tough time. It was tough. It was a tough time. It was tough.
I realized that card was actually worth money. I sold it on eBay.
Yep.
Somebody told me it was $1,000. I'm like, I'll just list it for $600.
No, he sold it for $600.
Someone bought it like that day, and I was like, somebody got a good deal. There you go. Hopefully somebody still has it and they're taking care of it. But
I don't know if this kid deserved to win this tournament. That's great. I was not expecting the end of that. This kid really did not. He did not give a shit about Yu-Gi-Oh at all, did he? $600, bro, for a $20,000 card. Maybe at the time it was less expensive. Maybe like around now it's worth $20,000. Maybe it was $1,000 at the time. But at least, dude, I used to do eBay back in the day when I was a kid. Even at that age, dude, you got to do your research. You got to go see the selling history of that specific card. You can literally go on eBay and see how much it's selling for in the past, like its selling history. What are we doing? This kid's an enigma.
love the trophy, of course.
Regardless, his accomplishment would forever be ingrained as one of the greatest miracles in Yu-Gi-Oh history, with the community recognizing that Marquise had overcome every possible adversity to embrace the heart of the cards and achieve the impossible.
Let's
decided to enter on a whim.
Let's go. W video. Okay, I don't know, dude. Shout out to Marquise for being maybe one of the most interesting Yu-Gi-Oh players I've ever seen. I hoped you enjoyed the video. This was a really fun reaction.